Hello guys, and welcome to a Halloween 1978 movie review on a new channel, Particle Media. This is where we talk about movies, TV shows, anything relating to pop culture, cinema, and other stuff like that. And I am not alone, as I am joined by MJxTV. Please say hello.
What's up, and thank you for having me on your second channel. I'm actually kind of stoked for this because we're talking about something that isn't anime or Dragon Ball related. I love Halloween, man.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Like, we usually talk about, like, as you said, manga, anime, especially of the Dragon Ball variety, and we rarely get to talk about, we rarely get to talk about actual sort of film and pop culture, apart from, Dragon Ball on our primary channel, so this is just a place to talk about whatever we want, movie or TV show related, so it's going to be fun. First of all, I just wanted to ask you, what was your first exposure to the Halloween franchise, and particularly the first film by John Carpenter?
That's a bit tough because when it comes to Halloween, I've seen it so many times, it would be kind of hard for me to pinpoint exactly when was the first time I had seen it. So that's a bit hard. Just know that I've been watching the Halloween movies since I was a kid. So, and when it comes to John Carpenter, I guess my first experience with him would have to be Big Trouble in Little China. I was recently watching that, and I was telling my sister about that movie because she loves it too. And the first time I saw it, I actually remember this specifically, is because I was watching it with my uncle. And the ending of Big Trouble in Little China always got to me. I always wondered what happened to Jack. so that always stuck with me. I'm not gonna say I had nightmares over the ending, but I did always think about what happened in that film, and I always wanted a part two. And I would constantly ask my uncle, "Is there a part two?" But yeah, that's my, I guess, first experience to John Carpenter.
Oh, okay. I mean, yeah, I kind of have a sort of similar experience. I try to watch this film, every Halloween or every, couple of Halloweens. It's just a great movie to sort of set the mood for Halloween, if you're going out to a Halloween party or just trick-or-treating or just kicking back watching horror films. This is a go-to classic. It's one of John Carpenter's best, one of the best slasher films ever made, and one of the most influential. Of course, we had Psycho in 1960, but this really laid the groundwork as the, as the conventional sort of slasher. It basically redefined a genre of the slasher film, and what makes this film really special is just, well, first of all, Michael Myers and his relationship with Dr. Loomis, played by the late Donald Pleasence. So, his relationship and, Dr. Loomis himself, what a terrific performance. I mean, man, this guy, when he starts monologuing, to the sheriff and just starts monologuing and talking about Michael and describing him in detail and what type of patient and nutcase this guy is, it's absolutely intriguing. And I think everyone loves Dr. Loomis as a character, and he's just one of the most fascinating parts about the film, maybe even more so than Michael. And Michael, we have that great first scene where, it's all in first person, and then a kid, Michael, he grabs the knife and starts, butchering his sister. And, he even steals the tombstone and, puts it in the bedroom. And, that first shot, and that first sequence with Michael as a kid, and then we see a shot of him just standing there with the knife in his hand, his mum and dad are there just talking Michael, it's so awesome. And then it cuts to 20 years later or whatever, and it's on Halloween night, and that just sort of laid the foundation so well. And that first person scene is absolutely incredible, and Dr. Loomis is absolutely incredible as well. And the way he describes Michael Myers, and the fact that before all of the sequels and stuff, Michael Myers was just a mystery, which really added to the film, I reckon. And while I don't mind them explaining who Michael Myers is, and, rather what Michael Myers is as an entity, I do like how, this first film just kept all of it under wraps and left, it up to interpretation, fan interpretation. Who is Michael Myers? Why did he kill his sister? Why is he going after Laurie Strode, the babysitter? That was semi-explained, but still there's open, there's room for interpretation.
Well, one thing that film hammered down was that Michael was supposed to be an entity that nobody really understood. That's something that's told to us right in the beginning when Dr. Loomis, and I believe her name is, I'll just say the nurse. I cannot remember her name off the top of my head. But Dr. Loomis and the nurse, Chambers. Yeah, there we go. Dr. Loomis and Mrs. Chambers were, going to Smith's Grove so they can escort Michael, but they're talking about Michael as if he's not like a man. And that in itself is very intriguing because, God, this movie was so wonderfully directed. So the scene takes place in a stormy night, and you're just seeing like the camera pan between just Loomis and Chambers and Loomis and Chambers, and you hear like that eerie music, and you start seeing like people like in just these robes or these white outfits, the crazy people just wandering in the dark, and you can barely make out what they are, and one of them is supposed to be this quote unquote Michael. It's so eerie in that first sequence following the amazing first person sequence. That sequence in itself kind of sets the tone for this film, and Dr. Loomis does a wonderful job. And you're right, Psycho did come first. That was 1960 by Alfred Hitchcock, but the people that have watched Halloween following that, Halloween was in 1978, a lot of people have credited Halloween as the film to start like the Friday the 13th and all the slashers that came in the 1980s and the 1990s, and then obviously we had the meta era, and then we had the resurgence later, but I'm rambling here. Halloween did start a lot of that. It came out in 1978, and a lot of people credit that as that. But again, the direction for this film was wonderful. Donald Pleasance played Dr. Loomis extremely well. Probably one of the best parts of the film. And one thing I do want to bring up too that you were talking about a bit was the fact that people are wondering, is the idea of Michael not being related to Laurie Strode, is that gonna hinder what this remake or this sequel is that we're getting in quite a few days, actually, now that I think about it? So when we get that movie, is that gonna hinder it? And I don't really think so, because Nathan, aka Particle Media, and I were talking about this off air, and we were talking about the idea that there's something very twisted and dark about the idea that all Laurie did was just take one step too many. She just went to the wrong porch, if you will. And that in itself kind of caused the downfall of her and her friends. I think that's a very twisted idea of a movie, because Michael literally has no connection to her, has no connection to her friends, yet she fucks with him, and her friends fuck with him too. Remember when they're, I guess trying to talk to him when he's like speeding and all this and that, and they're playing with him. Like, he literally was provoked and they were in his way. And Michael being Michael, who came home on Halloween night 15 years later, he killed them, and tried to kill Laurie. So I think that's a very twisted idea of a movie where he's just not related to them, and he's just kind of like pure evil. He's the boogeyman. And when you look up the definition of boogeyman, it's a monstrous imaginary figure. And that's what Michael was through that whole film. He was this monstrous figure. He was the boogeyman. And that's something that's reiterated many times throughout the film, until Laurie herself, who never believed, asked Dr. Loomis, was that the boogeyman? And even Loomis replies, I think it was. So I think that's like a beautifully, I guess, concept. Now, whether we're going to get that again in this film, probably. But I just found that to be interesting. I don't think the connection with Michael and Laurie hinders that. Don't get me wrong, I do love the twist. I do love that retcon. But at the end of the day, I don't think we need that twist to make a good film. I don't think that needs to really be there.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like Michael being Laurie's brother, it certainly is interesting, but I kind of like the simplicity of the first Halloween and the first Halloween only, with, Michael going to his house on, Halloween night, and then Laurie just going there, and, then it just sets Michael off. And the interesting thing about Michael is, even though he's kind of like, I guess secretive, and he is stalking Laurie, it's kind of like he's just right out there in the open, kind of like taunting her. He's not trying to be discreet. I mean, he kind of is, kind of isn't, and he's kind of like fucking with her, which I really do like. And I honestly like love the intrigue of Michael and the first, first and only shot we get to see of his face right before, Loomis gets him. And then he like obviously disappears, which in the 2018 Halloween, it seems like that he just gets arrested by the cops. But it's interesting that like he's kind of out in the open, and I just love that about him. And he obviously gets a boiler suit and the Halloween mask. I just love all of that stuff. And you were talking about sort of the direction and how this movie is directed, fantastically, and it is. And I also kind of like the sort of shaky camera work as, Laurie and her friends are just like walking by. I love the shaky camera work, and yes, that's because it was more of an independent film, but it also kind of adds to the sort of realism, and it kind of seems, like this could actually happen, like this psychopath could actually exist. Obviously, like he can't get shot 6 times and survive and, put up with all of the abuse like Michael did in the film. But, this type of thing can and, probably has happened. Somebody could have just went to the wrong house and got brutally, almost murdered and got their friends murdered. It could happen, It's very unlikely, but, something like Halloween could happen. And the shaky cam and sort of that realistic sort of way of filming does add to that for sure. And, this could happen on Halloween night. You could just provoke some psychopath by showing up to his doorstep.
And it's accidentally too, which is scary. It's stuff that you would not think would cause it, like when her friend goes, speed kills, and then the car just stops. It's like, to them, they're teenagers. They probably thought it was one of their friends, probably like a high school jock. They're just fucking with them. You're not realizing that you're provoking the beast, if you will. So
yeah, and the way that Loomis, he says, like, he doesn't describe, like, Michael as a man, just pure evil. That's also a fascinating concept that was explored later in the sequels, but just, I love the sort of ambiguity aspect of the first film and the first film only, and I like how John Carpenter intentionally made it ambiguous, like, who Michael Myers was, why did he kill his sister, and why he was so provoked by Laurie. We know why, but why was he so provoked to go and kill him? Obviously, he's a psychopath and he's, a crazed killer, but why did he kill his sister? Like, there's so much backstory that we're missing, and I kind of like that we're missing it. It keeps us guessing, and the fact that Michael, at the start, just has that sort of guilty face on it, on his face, basically, when they lift up the mask and it's Michael as a little kid just standing there. He looks lost, and he has sort of a blank expression on his face. It kind of reminds me of 12 Angry Men, if you've ever seen that movie. Fantastic movie, perfect movie, where we see a shot of a little boy and they are trying to, find out whether the kid killed his father or not. It's the same sort of thing, and we get one shot of this little boy and he kind of has the same face, kind of looks guilty. Something's not all there, something that we need to figure out as, 12 Angry Men goes on. It reminds me of Halloween very much. And this movie is honestly goddamn near perfect, kind of like The Shining in a way, man. It's brilliant stuff. One of the best films by John Carpenter. And there's so many, and the kills aren't, as gory as Halloween 2 and the later sequels. They don't have to be. This movie relies a lot on suspense, and the fact that we can see Michael Myers, just stalking Laurie and she doesn't even know, for half the film, and when she does figure it out, it's just a great reveal. And the fact that we get to see Michael just look at Laurie for 20 goddamn seconds and just walks off, it's just fantastic, and it provides so much tension. And that last act where they're inside the house, it's just brilliant, bro. And that ending, fantastic, and it leaves it open for a sequel, but I guess it kind of doesn't in a way, because it's John Carpenter wanted this character to be all mysterious and stuff, so it was the perfect way to go out. But yeah, do you have any final thoughts on Halloween? I mean, we could be going for like hours, but I think we should wrap it up. Do you have any final thoughts on Halloween? And could you comment on how the sequels are, and also just give a short ranking of the Halloween movies?
Well, I guess to wrap this version up, we could talk about the musical score, because that's something else that people usually bring up. Now, this film has an amazing soundtrack. People bring up that this film is, I guess, a bit hard to get into, especially nowadays for the modern audience to watch, because it doesn't really pick up towards the middle. But overall, if you're a fan of music, if you're a fan of just a well-directed film, that should capture you, because the direction is awesome, but the music is awesome. And anybody watching this video, and anybody who just knows what Halloween is, they know that theme. They know Michael's theme. And I think that John Carpenter created something very iconic when it comes to Halloween soundtrack, and that's probably one of the best parts of this film. Now, when it comes to ranking the movies, Halloween 1978, that's still top dog for me. I guess if I had to, the next ones that would follow would be like 4 and 2, and then the rest of the films are kind of whatever to me, but they can go for whatever. However, though, for me personally, Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, and then Curse of Michael Myers, which is Halloween 6, and then Resurrection are just terrible. Straight, I don't know who wrote that film. I would have to fact check it, but whoever thought Busta Rhymes fighting Michael Myers with karate was a good idea, I want what you're smoking, dog. Pass that to me, please.
Well, what if it was like approved by John Carpenter, bro? Like, oh, we gotta have Busta Rhymes in here, bro. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, I mean, they were able to get Toriyama to approve Vegito fighting for 6 seconds, so yeah.
Jesus Christ. We can't make a video without a Dragon Ball reference. Right. I escaped like the Frozen Particle channel and come to this channel to talk about Halloween, bro, but we end up talking about like Dragon Ball. But like the musical score is brilliant as well. And this movie, like talking about pacing and the timing of the film, this movie also has a brilliant pace. It's only like 90 minutes long, 1 hour 30 minutes. And it paces out beautifully. I mean, I feel like towards the middle, it gets a little bit bogged down and slow. Maybe they could have shaved off, maybe like 5 minutes from this film. But yeah, like it's paced really well. It gets like things moving. And people that go into this movie for the first time, nowadays, probably might be like, what's the big, deal? I mean, it's directed wonderfully. It has a brilliant soundtrack, but, some people might have been like, oh, this seems too cliche. And it's because it's the first film of its kind, basically, and it's so brilliantly done. I mean, it's honestly one of the best films, one of the best horror films of all time. John Carpenter smashed it out of the park, and I absolutely agree with MJ that this is the top dog. And I'm also looking forward to Halloween 2018. So that's going to do it for us, guys. Please make sure to rate, comment, and subscribe. Please go subscribe to MJxTV. He really helps me out and, the channel out a lot. So please go subscribe to him, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.